The grand ballroom of the Mooncrest Pack Palace glittered beneath crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of alphas, betas, and omegas filled the room. Tonight was the annual mate recognition ceremony. The night fate revealed destined mates. At the center of the crowd stood Adrian Hale. Tall, powerful, the future Alpha King. Every eye followed him. Every Omega dreamed of being chosen by him. But Adrian's attention was fixed on only one person. Vanessa Reed, the beautiful Omega from the prestigious Reed family. Everyone already assumed they would become mates. Even Vanessa stood beside him with a confident smile. Meanwhile, near the back of the ballroom, Rowan Bell adjusted the sleeves of his borrowed suit. Unlike the wealthy guests surrounding him, he didn't belong here. His family had spent months saving enough money just so he could attend. His uncle had reminded him all week. Don't embarrass us. Maybe some wealthy alpha will notice you. At least make yourself useful. Rowan simply nodded. He was used to hearing things like that. Growing up poor had taught him to expect very little. Still, a small part of him couldn't help hoping. Not for a rich alpha. Not for power. Just for someone who would love him. Someone who would look at him and choose him. The ceremony began. One by one, young wolves discovered their mates. Some laughed. Some cried. Some embraced. The room buzzed with excitement. Then suddenly, a powerful scent exploded through the ballroom. Adrian froze. His wolf surged forward violently. Mate. The word echoed inside his head. Impossible. His eyes immediately turned toward Vanessa. But nothing happened. No pull. No bond. No recognition. Confusion flashed across his face. Then his wolf dragged his attention elsewhere. Toward the back of the room. Toward a trembling Omega standing completely still. Rowan. The moment their eyes met, the bond snapped into place. Rowan gasped. His heart nearly stopped. Warmth spread through every part of him. His wolf purred happily. Mate. His gaze softened instantly. Adrian. It was Adrian. The most powerful alpha in the kingdom. And somehow, his mate. For a brief moment, Rowan felt like the luckiest Omega alive. Then he saw Adrian's expression. Shock. Disbelief. And finally, disgust. The warmth inside Rowan vanished. The entire ballroom fell silent. Everyone had noticed. Everyone had seen the bond form. Vanessa's face turned pale. No. Adrian stepped forward. His jaw clenched. This is a mistake. The elders exchanged worried looks. One elder rose from his seat. Alpha Adrian, fate does not make mistakes. I reject. Stop. The elder's voice thundered through the room. Instantly, every wolf lowered their heads. Even Adrian froze. The elder's expression darkened. You know the law. A murmur spread across the ballroom. Adrian's hands curled into fists. Of course he knew. Every alpha knew. A fated mate bond could not be immediately rejected. Not without consequences. Not without risking the future of the Hale bloodline. Not without damaging the alpha's wolf. The elder continued. The matter will be discussed privately. Adrian looked at Rowan. Not with affection. Not with acceptance. But as if Rowan had ruined his future. Rowan's chest tightened painfully. Because in that moment, he understood. His mate didn't want him. And this was only the beginning of his heartbreak. The meeting took place the very next morning. Inside the Hale family's private council chamber, the atmosphere was tense. Adrian stood near the window with his arms crossed. His face was cold. His patience was gone. Across from him sat the pack elders. Beside them sat Vanessa and her parents. No one looked happy, especially Adrian. I want the bond dissolved immediately, Adrian said. An elder sighed. We already explained this. I don't care. You should. The room fell silent. The oldest elder leaned forward. Alpha Adrian, your family has protected the kingdom for generations. The Hale bloodline is important. Adrian's jaw tightened. What does that have to do with Rowan? Everything. The elder's gaze hardened. You cannot reject a fated mate before securing an heir. Adrian looked ready to explode. The elder continued. If you reject him now, the backlash could weaken your wolf permanently. The bond itself would become unstable. You may never have a healthy heir. Vanessa immediately grabbed Adrian's arm. There has to be another way. There is. Every head turned toward the elder. The bond can be safely severed after an heir is born. The room became silent. Adrian stared at him. What are you saying? We are saying that Rowan Bell will remain your mate until a child is conceived and born. Vanessa looked horrified. Adrian looked furious. Meanwhile, miles away in a small rundown house, Rowan sat quietly at the kitchen table. His relatives were celebrating. His uncle laughed loudly. His aunt couldn't stop smiling. You hit the jackpot. Do you know how rich the Hale family is? We'll never have to worry about money again. Rowan remained silent. The excitement around him felt wrong. As if nobody cared about what he wanted. As if nobody cared that his mate hated him. A knock suddenly echoed through the house. The room instantly fell quiet. The front door opened. 3 luxury vehicles stood outside. Members of the Hale family entered, followed by lawyers, PAC representatives, and elders. Rowan immediately stood. His stomach twisted nervously. The lead elder spoke first. Rowan Bell. Yes, elder. We have reached a decision regarding your bond with Adrian Hale. Rowan's heart pounded. Part of him still hoped. Maybe Adrian had accepted him. Maybe fate had changed something. Then the elder handed him a document. The first line shattered every hope. Mating agreement. Not marriage. Not partnership. An agreement. A contract. The elder spoke calmly. You will live with Alpha Adrian. You will remain by his side until an heir is born. After that, the bond will be dissolved. The room suddenly felt too small, too quiet, too cold. Rowan lowered his gaze to hide the pain in his eyes. So that was it. He wasn't a mate. He wasn't a husband. He was simply a requirement. A way to produce an heir. Nothing more. His uncle quickly grabbed the contract. His eyes widened at the amount listed. The compensation was enough money to change their lives forever. We accept. Rowan looked up. His uncle was already smiling. His aunt was crying tears of joy. Neither of them had asked Rowan what he wanted. Not once. The elder's gaze shifted to Rowan. What is your answer? The room waited. Rowan's fingers tightened around the paper. He knew the truth. If he refused, his family would blame him forever. If he accepted, his heart would break. Slowly, painfully, he forced himself to smile. I accept. Far away in the Hale mansion, Adrian signed the same contract. Without reading it twice. Without caring. To him, it was simple. Give the family an heir. End the bond. Marry Vanessa. Move on. Neither of them knew that fate had much crueler plans waiting ahead. 2 weeks later, Rowan stood in front of the Hale mansion. His small suitcase rested beside him. The mansion was larger than anything he had ever seen. Tall gates. Perfect gardens. Luxury cars lined the driveway. It looked more like a palace than a home. And yet, Rowan had never felt more unwelcome. A servant opened the door. Mr. Bell, please follow me. Rowan nodded quietly. As he stepped inside, dozens of eyes turned toward him. Servants, guards, family members. Everyone knew who he was. The poor Omega who had somehow become Adrian Hale's mate. The whispers started immediately. That's him, the mate. I thought Alpha Adrian would end up with Miss Vanessa. Poor Alpha. Rowan lowered his head and continued walking, pretending he couldn't hear them, pretending they didn't hurt. The servant eventually stopped in front of a large bedroom. This will be your room. Rowan blinked. Mine. Yes. The servant hesitated. Alpha Adrian's room is on the opposite side of the mansion. The meaning was clear. Separate rooms. Separate lives. Separate everything. Rowan smiled weakly. I understand. The servant left. The door closed. And suddenly the room felt very empty. Rowan sat on the edge of the bed. This was supposed to be where mates built a life together. Where they laughed together. Shared dreams together. Instead, he felt like a guest. A temporary visitor. Someone who would eventually be thrown away. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Before Rowan could answer, the door opened. Adrian walked in. The air immediately filled with the powerful scent of alpha pheromones. Rowan's wolf stirred happily. His heart reacted before his mind could stop it. Mate. Adrian's expression remained cold, as if Rowan were a stranger. Or worse, an inconvenience. He placed a folder on the table. Read it. Rowan looked down. Inside were rules. Pages and pages of rules. No entering Adrian's room. No attending business events without permission. No speaking to the media. No creating scandals. No expectations. The last line hurt the most. Do not mistake this arrangement for a real marriage. Rowan stared at those words. His vision blurred slightly. Adrian noticed. But he didn't care. You understand? Rowan swallowed. Yes. Good. Adrian turned toward the door, then paused. For a second, neither of them spoke. Finally, Rowan gathered enough courage to ask, Did you ever wish to give me a chance? The question escaped before he could stop it. The room fell silent. Adrian's shoulders stiffened. Then he answered without turning around. No. One word. Just one word. Yet it felt like a knife through Rowan's heart. Adrian left. The door closed, and Rowan stood alone again. Hours later, night fell over the mansion. Downstairs, servants prepared dinner. The Hale family gathered together. Everyone attended, except Adrian. One of the servants accidentally mentioned where he was. Alpha Adrian is having dinner with Miss Vanessa. The room became quiet. Several family members looked uncomfortable. Rowan simply smiled. It's okay. But it wasn't okay. Not at all. Later that night, Rowan stood by his bedroom window, looking out at the distant city lights. Somewhere out there, Adrian was spending his evening with the woman he truly wanted, while Rowan sat alone in a room that didn't feel like home. Slowly, he touched the bond mark on his wrist, the mark that connected him to Adrian, the mark he had once dreamed about. Now it only reminded him of one thing. He had been chosen by fate, but never by Adrian. And somehow, that hurt even more. The next morning, Rowan woke up before sunrise. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was. Then reality returned. The Hale mansion, the contract, Adrian, and the future that already felt hopeless. After getting dressed, Rowan quietly made his way downstairs. The scent of breakfast filled the air. His stomach growled. Yesterday had been exhausting. He hadn't eaten much. As he stepped into the dining room, several servants immediately looked uncomfortable. One of them approached him. Mr. Bell. Before the servant could finish speaking, another voice interrupted. Why is he here? Rowan turned. Vanessa Reed stood at the entrance, perfectly dressed, elegant, as if she already belonged in the mansion. The servants immediately lowered their heads. Miss Vanessa. Vanessa's eyes landed on Rowan. A small smile appeared on her lips, but there was no warmth in it, only contempt. I asked a question. The servant hesitated. Mr. Bell came for breakfast. Vanessa laughed softly. Breakfast? She walked toward Rowan. You've only been here for a day and already expect to be treated like the future Luna? Rowan's face paled. I didn't mean. You didn't mean what? Vanessa crossed her arms. You're only here because of a contract. The dining room fell silent. Every servant could hear her. Every servant could see Rowan's humiliation. Vanessa continued. The Hale family is already paying your relatives a fortune. So why should you live here for free? Rowan lowered his eyes. He said nothing, because deep down, he knew Adrian probably agreed. Just then, a familiar scent entered the room. Adrian. Everyone immediately straightened. Vanessa's expression softened instantly. Adrian. She walked over and linked her arm with his. Adrian barely glanced at Rowan. What happened? Vanessa sighed dramatically. I was simply discussing responsibilities. Adrian frowned. What responsibilities? Vanessa smiled. If Rowan is going to stay here for years, shouldn't he contribute something? The room became quiet again. Vanessa looked toward Rowan. Every worker in this mansion earns their place. So should he. Several elders seated nearby exchanged uneasy glances. But before they could speak, Adrian answered. She's right. Rowan froze. The elders looked surprised. Adrian's gaze remained cold. He's not my spouse. He's not the future Luna. He's here because of an agreement. Every word landed heavily. Rowan's fingers tightened. Adrian continued. If he wants to stay here, he should work. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. The elders didn't look pleased, but technically nothing Adrian said violated the contract. One elder finally spoke. As long as Rowan's health is protected, especially if he becomes pregnant. Adrian nodded carelessly. Fine. Then he looked at Rowan. You'll work. We'll add you to the mansion staff. You'll receive monthly wages. As far as I'm concerned, that's more than fair. The room remained silent. Everyone waited for Rowan's reaction. His pride screamed at him to refuse. His heart begged him to leave. But he couldn't. His family needed the money. And despite everything, a foolish part of him still wanted to stay near Adrian. Even if Adrian never loved him. Rowan forced a small smile. I understand. Vanessa's satisfaction was impossible to hide. Adrian simply walked away. The matter settled. Or so they thought. That afternoon, Rowan received his first assignment. Cleaning the West Wing. A section of the mansion larger than his entire childhood home. For hours he worked quietly. Dusting. Organizing. Cleaning rooms no one even used. By evening, his hands ached. His feet hurt. And he hadn't had a proper meal all day. Yet he never complained. Because complaining wouldn't change anything. As the sun began to set, Rowan carried a basket of laundry down a hallway. Suddenly, he heard laughter. Adrian's laughter. The sound made him stop. Slowly, he looked toward the open garden doors. There they were, Adrian and Vanessa, sitting together, smiling together, looking exactly like a happy couple. The sight hurt more than Rowan wanted to admit. Because no matter how many chores he completed, no matter how hard he worked, no matter how much he loved Adrian, he would never be the one sitting beside him. And for the first time since arriving at the mansion, Rowan realized something. The hardest part wasn't the work. The hardest part was watching the man he loved give everything he wished for to someone else. Weeks passed. Rowan settled into his new life, if it could even be called a life. Every morning, he woke before dawn. Every day, he cleaned, cooked, organized, and worked throughout the mansion. Every month, he received wages, just like any other employee. The only difference was the mark connecting him to the alpha who wanted nothing to do with him. Most servants eventually grew fond of Rowan. He was kind, hardworking, never complained, even when others would have. Unfortunately, not everyone treated him kindly, especially Vanessa. Whenever she visited, she found new ways to remind Rowan of his place. Don't touch that. That's Adrian's favorite. Only I know how he likes his coffee. You're just temporary anyway. Each word hurt, but Rowan endured it. Because he had no choice. Because somewhere deep inside his foolish heart, he still hoped. One afternoon, Rowan was organizing books in the library when a sudden wave of dizziness hit him. He grabbed the shelf for support. His body felt strangely warm. Too warm. A familiar fear settled in his stomach. No, his heat. It was coming. Earlier than expected. His breathing became uneven. The scent of sweet omega pheromones slowly began filling the room. Rowan immediately left. He needed suppressants. He needed distance. He needed to get away before anyone noticed. Unfortunately, fate had other plans. As he hurried through the hallway, he collided with someone. Strong arms grabbed him before he could fall. A powerful alpha scent surrounded him. Adrian. Both froze. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Rowan immediately stepped back. Sorry. But Adrian wasn't listening. His wolf was suddenly restless. The scent. His mate's scent. Stronger than ever before. Adrian frowned. You're entering heat. Rowan's cheeks burned with embarrassment. I'll handle it. He tried to leave, but his knees nearly gave out. Adrian instinctively caught him again. The contact sent sparks through the mate bond. Rowan felt it. Adrian felt it too. Both immediately pulled away. The silence became awkward. Then Adrian sighed. Come with me. Rowan blinked. What? You can't stay around other alphas like this. His tone remained cold. Practical. Nothing more. As though discussing a business problem. Not his mate. Later that evening, Rowan found himself in a secure room designed specifically for omega heats. The room was comfortable, safe, private. Adrian stood near the door. An elder had already been called. After examining Rowan, the elder looked concerned. The bond is becoming stronger. Adrian's expression darkened. What does that mean? The elder looked between them. It means the bond is demanding progression. Neither spoke. The elder continued. Eventually, the two of you must complete the mating bond and produce an heir. The room became painfully silent. Rowan lowered his gaze. Adrian's face hardened, as if the very thought disgusted him. The elder left shortly afterward, leaving only Rowan and Adrian. Neither spoke for several minutes. Finally, Adrian broke the silence. This changes nothing. The words felt like ice. Rowan smiled sadly. I know. Adrian hesitated. For the first time since they met. A flicker of guilt crossed his face. Only for a second. Then it disappeared. Without another word, he left. The door closed behind him. Rowan sat alone on the bed, his heat growing stronger, his heart aching. And outside the room, Adrian stood motionless in the hallway. For reasons he couldn't explain, the scent of his suffering mate lingered in his mind long after he walked away. And for the first time, his wolf seemed unhappy with the choices he was making. Rowan remained inside the heat room for 3 days. 3 long days. 3 painful days. His body ached. His heart hurt even more. The suppressants helped, but they couldn't completely silence the mate bond. Every instinct inside him longed for Adrian, for his scent, for his presence. But Adrian never came. Not once. The only people who visited were doctors and servants. Each time the door opened, Rowan found himself hoping, only to be disappointed. Again, and again, and again. On the 3rd day, the elders arrived. along with Adrian. The moment Rowan saw him, his heart betrayed him. It skipped, just like it always did. Adrian remained standing near the door, cold, distant, untouchable. The eldest elder spoke. We have delayed this matter long enough. The room became tense. Rowan looked down. He already knew what was coming. The elder continued. The bond is progressing normally. The Hale bloodline requires an heir. The two of you must begin fulfilling your obligations as mates. A heavy silence followed. Adrian's jaw tightened. Vanessa, who had insisted on attending, looked furious. There has to be another way. There isn't. The elder's answer was immediate. Nature does not care about personal preferences. Vanessa looked ready to argue, but the elder's glare stopped her. Adrian finally spoke. When? The question made Rowan's chest ache. No emotion, no affection, just a business transaction. The elder answered calmly. As soon as possible. That evening, the entire mansion seemed unusually quiet. Rowan sat on the edge of his bed. His hands trembled slightly. He knew what was expected. He knew what was coming. But knowing didn't make it easier. A knock echoed through the room. His heart immediately began racing. The door opened. Adrian entered. Neither spoke. The silence felt unbearable. Finally, Adrian placed a document on the table. Rowan looked at it. Another contract. Of course, everything between them was a contract. Rules, responsibilities, obligations. Nothing more. Adrian's voice remained emotionless. The lawyers prepared this. Rowan stared at the pages. Monthly support, medical coverage, future provisions for the child. Everything carefully calculated. Everything perfectly organized. Everything except feelings. Because feelings weren't included. Not a single line mentioned love. Hours later, the mansion lights slowly dimmed. Outside, rain tapped softly against the windows. Inside the room, Rowan sat alone, trying to steady his breathing, trying not to cry, trying not to think about how different this should have been. Every Omega dreamed about meeting their mate, falling in love, building a family together. Instead, his mate viewed him as an obligation, a duty, a requirement for producing an heir. Nothing more. A quiet knock interrupted his thoughts. The door opened once again. Adrian stood there. For the first time all day, neither spoke. The mate bond pulsed gently between them, a reminder of what fate wanted, even if neither of them had chosen it. Rowan lowered his eyes. Adrian stepped inside, and somewhere deep within the mansion, the elders smiled, because after months of waiting, the Hale family might finally get the heir they wanted. But no one stopped to ask what Rowan wanted. No one asked whether his heart could survive this. And perhaps the cruelest part of all was that Rowan already knew the answer. The following weeks passed quietly. At least on the surface, the mansion celebrated. The elders were pleased. The Hale family watched Rowan more carefully than ever. Everyone was waiting for one thing: an heir. Nothing else seemed to matter. Not Rowan's feelings. Not his happiness. Only the future child. To Rowan's surprise, Adrian began spending more time around him. Not because he wanted to. Not because he cared. But because the elders insisted. The bond must remain stable. The future heir's health depends on it. The mate pair must spend time together. Those were the reasons. Always reasons. Never affection. Still, for Rowan, even small moments felt precious. Sometimes they ate breakfast at the same table, even if Adrian barely spoke. Sometimes Adrian drove him to medical appointments, even if the ride was silent. Sometimes they walked through the mansion gardens together, even if Adrian was only following the elders' instructions. To everyone else, those moments meant nothing. To Rowan, they meant everything. One evening, Rowan was carrying a basket of folded laundry when he slipped on the staircase. A startled gasp escaped him. Before he could fall, a hand grabbed his arm. Strong, warm, steady. Adrian. The basket crashed onto the floor. Clothes scattered everywhere. For a moment, Rowan found himself pressed against Adrian's chest. Their eyes met. Neither moved. Neither spoke. The mate bond stirred softly. Rowan's heart raced. Adrian immediately stepped back, his expression unreadable. Be careful. Just 2 words. Then he walked away. Yet Rowan stood frozen long after Adrian disappeared. A foolish smile appeared on his face. Because for the first time, Adrian had reached for him instinctively. Not because an elder was watching. Not because someone told him to. But because he reacted without thinking. And Rowan carried that tiny moment in his heart for days. Unfortunately, Vanessa noticed. Vanessa noticed everything. A week later, she arrived at the mansion unexpectedly. The moment she saw Rowan sitting beside Adrian during lunch, jealousy flashed through her eyes. After the meal ended, she cornered Adrian. "You're getting too comfortable." Adrian frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Rowan." The name came out sharply. "You spend more time with him now." Adrian sighed. "We've already discussed this. It's for the heir." Vanessa crossed her arms. "And after the heir?" "After the heir, the bond ends." The answer came instantly, without hesitation, without doubt. Vanessa smiled in satisfaction. But neither of them noticed the figure standing just outside the doorway. Rowan. Every word reached him. Every single one. The small hope he had been protecting shattered instantly. He should have known better. He should have remembered the truth. No matter how kind Adrian occasionally seemed, nothing had changed. To Adrian, this was temporary. Always temporary. That night, Rowan sat alone in his room. The moonlight spilled through the window. His eyes were fixed on a small notebook. Inside were dozens of tiny memories. The first time Adrian spoke to him. The first meal they shared. The first time Adrian remembered his favorite tea. Small things. Meaningless things. The kind of things people in love collected. Rowan slowly closed the notebook, then placed it inside a drawer. Maybe it was time to stop hoping. Maybe it was time to stop imagining a future that would never happen. Because somewhere in the mansion, Adrian was already planning the life he wanted after Rowan was gone. And Rowan was beginning to realize that no amount of love could make someone choose you. Not if their heart had already chosen someone else. A few days after overhearing Adrian and Vanessa's conversation, Rowan became quieter. He still worked, still smiled, still completed every task asked of him. But something had changed. The hope in his eyes was gone. And for some reason, Adrian noticed. At first, he told himself it didn't matter. Rowan was temporary. The arrangement was temporary. Everything would end once an heir was born. So why did Rowan's silence bother him? Why did the dining table feel strangely empty when Rowan barely spoke? Why did he find himself looking for him around the mansion? The questions irritated him, so he ignored them. One morning, Rowan was helping organize the library when a wave of dizziness suddenly hit him. His vision blurred. The room spun. Before he could steady himself, his knees gave out. "Rowan!" A servant rushed forward. The next thing Rowan knew, he was lying in the mansion's medical wing. Several doctors surrounded him. The Hale family had also arrived, including Adrian. When Rowan slowly opened his eyes, the head doctor smiled. "Congratulations." Rowan blinked. "Congratulations?" The doctor nodded. "You are pregnant." The room fell silent. Rowan's breath caught. Pregnant. His hand instinctively moved to his stomach. Pregnant. There was a baby. A tiny life growing inside him. A child created from the mate bond. Tears immediately filled his eyes. Not from sadness. Not from fear. But from overwhelming emotion. Meanwhile, the elders looked delighted. The Hale family looked relieved. Years of worry about securing an heir had disappeared in an instant. The doctor turned toward Adrian. "Alpha Hale, your mate and child appear healthy." Everyone waited for Adrian's reaction. For several seconds, he said nothing. His eyes remained fixed on Rowan. Then slowly, his gaze drifted toward Rowan's trembling hand resting over his stomach. Something unfamiliar stirred inside him. Not love. Not yet. But something. Responsibility. Concern. Perhaps even protectiveness. A feeling he hadn't expected. Later that evening, Rowan sat alone in his room, still trying to process everything. A soft knock came from the door. He looked up in surprise. Adrian stood outside. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Adrian stepped inside. His gaze briefly lowered to Rowan's stomach. "The doctor said you need more rest." Rowan blinked. That was the first time Adrian had ever asked about his well-being. Even indirectly. "I'll be fine." Adrian nodded. Then another awkward silence followed. Before leaving, Adrian paused near the door. "You shouldn't skip meals anymore." Rowan stared. The comment was simple, almost insignificant. Yet it stunned him. Because Adrian had noticed. He had actually noticed. Adrian left moments later. But neither of them realized something important. For the first time since the bond formed, Adrian wasn't looking at Rowan as an obligation. He was beginning to see him as a person. And that small change would eventually alter everything. The news of Rowan's pregnancy spread throughout the Hale mansion within hours. Everyone was celebrating. The elders were delighted. The servants smiled whenever they saw Rowan. Even Adrian's parents seemed pleased for the first time since the mating ceremony. After all, The future heir was finally on the way. But not everyone was happy. Vanessa Reed stood in her bedroom, staring at her reflection. Her nails dug into her palms. Pregnant. Rowan was pregnant. The one thing she had feared most had happened. That Omega was no longer just a temporary mate. He was now carrying the future heir of the Hale family. And with every passing day, his position inside the mansion would become stronger. Vanessa's eyes darkened. She couldn't allow that. A few days later, Rowan was surprised when Vanessa appeared outside his room, carrying a tray. A gentle smile rested on her face, one that looked completely sincere. Rowan. Rowan blinked. Miss Vanessa? I heard you've been feeling tired. Vanessa stepped inside. I brought you some herbal tea. Rowan was stunned. For the first time since they met, Vanessa appeared kind. Thank you. Vanessa smiled sweetly. After all, you're carrying the Hale heir. For a moment, Rowan wondered if perhaps things were changing. Maybe Vanessa had finally accepted the situation. Maybe they could get along. Just as Rowan reached for the cup, the door suddenly opened. An elderly servant entered. The moment she saw the tea, her expression changed. Wait. Everyone froze. The servant rushed forward and grabbed the cup. She sniffed it once. Then her face turned pale. This herb shouldn't be consumed during pregnancy. The room became silent. Vanessa's smile faltered. What? The servant looked alarmed. It can cause serious complications for pregnant Omegas. Rowan's face lost all color. Vanessa immediately shook her head. Oh my goodness. I had no idea. It must have been a mistake. Her performance was flawless. No one could prove otherwise. Not even Rowan. Yet for the first time, a small seed of doubt settled inside his heart. Days passed. Vanessa became more careful, more subtle. Instead of directly targeting Rowan, she focused on making his life harder. Soon new tasks appeared. More cleaning, more organizing, more responsibilities. Every day became longer. Every day became more exhausting. And Rowan accepted it all without complaint. He didn't want trouble. He didn't want anyone thinking he was using his pregnancy for special treatment. So he worked, and worked, and worked, until one evening, his body finally reached its limit. Rowan was carrying several storage boxes across the west wing when his vision blurred. His back ached. His feet hurt. The weight felt heavier than usual. But he kept walking. One more trip. Just one more. Suddenly, the box slipped. Rowan stumbled forward. A gasp escaped him. Before he hit the ground, strong arms caught him. The boxes crashed across the floor. Silence filled the hallway. Rowan looked up. Adrian. For a brief moment, neither moved. Then Adrian's expression darkened. What are you doing? Rowan blinked. I was moving these. You shouldn't be carrying them. I'm fine. No, you're not. The sharpness in Adrian's voice surprised both of them. Rowan stared. Adrian rarely sounded emotional about anything involving him. Adrian looked at the scattered boxes, then at Rowan's exhausted face, then at the dark circles beneath his eyes. A strange anger began building inside him. Who assigned this work? Rowan hesitated. Nobody forced me. That wasn't an answer. And Adrian knew it. For the first time, he realized just how hard Rowan had been working. And for the first time, he didn't like it. Later that night, Vanessa learned what happened. A servant casually mentioned that Adrian had personally escorted Rowan back to his room. The glass in Vanessa's hand shattered. The servant immediately flinched. Vanessa barely noticed. Her heart pounded with fury. Why? Why was Adrian paying attention to Rowan? Why was he protecting him? Why was he looking at him more often? The questions terrified her. Because deep down, Vanessa knew something was changing. And if she wasn't careful, she might lose everything she had spent years trying to obtain. The following weeks passed quietly. Rowan's pregnancy was progressing well. The doctors were pleased. The elders were pleased. Even Adrian's parents seemed happier than before. The future Hale heir was healthy. That was all anyone cared about. Meanwhile, Rowan continued working throughout the mansion despite repeated warnings from the doctors. He didn't want special treatment. He didn't want anyone saying he was using the pregnancy to gain sympathy. So he continued working, continued smiling, continued pretending everything was fine, even when his heart wasn't. One afternoon, Rowan was returning from a medical checkup. The doctor had just shown him the baby's first scan. For the first time in months, he felt genuinely happy. His hand rested protectively over his stomach as he walked through the garden. A small smile touched his lips. At least his baby was healthy. That was enough. Or at least he tried to convince himself it was. As he approached the central fountain, familiar voices reached his ears. Adrian and Vanessa. Rowan immediately slowed his steps. He hadn't intended to interrupt. Before he could quietly leave, Vanessa suddenly wrapped her arms around Adrian. Tears filled her eyes. "I hate this." Her voice trembled. "I hate watching everyone celebrate his pregnancy." Adrian sighed. "Vanessa, it's not fair." She buried her face against his chest. "You were supposed to be mine." Rowan's smile disappeared. His fingers tightened around the medical report in his hand. His chest ached, yet he couldn't make himself leave. Vanessa looked up at Adrian. "Do you regret it?" The question hung in the air. For a moment, Adrian said nothing. Then his eyes lifted, directly toward Rowan. The distance between them wasn't far, just enough for Adrian to notice him standing there. Their gazes met. Rowan froze. Hope filled his eyes before he could stop it. A foolish, painful, desperate hope. For 1 second, he wanted Adrian to choose him. Just once. Just this once. Neither of them looked away. The world seemed to go quiet. Then Vanessa squeezed Adrian's hand. "Adrian." The moment shattered. Adrian turned back toward her. "It's temporary." The words felt like a knife through Rowan's heart. Vanessa's expression softened. "Promise. I promise." Rowan felt his breathing become uneven. Then Vanessa rose onto her toes and kissed Adrian. This time Adrian didn't stop her. He didn't pull away. He simply stood there, allowing it. And Rowan saw everything. The kiss, the promise, the affection Adrian never showed him. Something inside him broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a fragile dream finally dying. His hand instinctively moved to his stomach, protecting the tiny life growing inside him. Then he turned around and walked away before either of them could see the tears falling down his face. That evening, Rowan remained inside his room. The dinner bell rang. He didn't go. A servant knocked. He didn't answer. For the first time since arriving at the mansion, he simply wanted to be alone. Downstairs, Adrian noticed immediately. "Where's Rowan?" A servant hesitated. "Mr. Bell hasn't left his room since this afternoon." Adrian frowned slightly. The answer bothered him more than it should have. For some reason, he found himself thinking about the look in Rowan's eyes at the fountain. The pain, the disappointment, the heartbreak. A strange feeling settled in his chest. One he didn't understand. One he chose to ignore. Meanwhile, Vanessa sat beside him in the lounge. Her arm linked through his. A satisfied smile rested on her face. "Stay with me tonight." Adrian looked up from his paperwork. "What? I've barely seen you all week." She leaned closer. "Just tonight." After a moment, Adrian sighed. "Fine." Vanessa smiled immediately. Victorious. She had no idea Rowan had witnessed the scene in the garden, and Adrian never imagined how deeply it had hurt him. Late that night, Rowan stood by his bedroom window. Moonlight filled the room. One hand rested on his stomach. The other wiped away silent tears. Far below, he could see the lights still on in the guest wing. He didn't need anyone to tell him where Adrian was. He already knew. For months he had told himself not to hope, not to dream, not to expect anything. Yet somehow, his heart still broke every time reality reminded him. Because no matter what fate said, no matter what the bond said, no matter whose child he carried, Adrian's heart belonged to someone else. And Rowan was beginning to wonder if it always would. After the incident in the garden, something changed. Not in Adrian. In Rowan. The hopeful Omega who used to wait for Adrian every evening disappeared. The smiles became smaller. The conversations became shorter. And the quiet affection Rowan had never been able to hide was suddenly gone. At breakfast, Rowan no longer waited for Adrian to arrive. He ate early and left. At lunch, he found reasons to stay in the library. At dinner, he often asked servants to bring food to his room. Whenever Adrian entered a room, Rowan found a reason to leave it. At first, Adrian barely noticed. Then slowly, he did. One morning, Adrian entered the dining room expecting to see Rowan. The seat was empty. Again, he frowned. "Where's Rowan?" A servant bowed. "Mr. Bell already had breakfast, Alpha." Adrian looked at the untouched chair. For some reason, the answer irritated him. The same thing happened at lunch, and dinner, and the next day, and the day after that. Eventually, Adrian realized something. Rowan wasn't busy. Rowan was avoiding him. Meanwhile, Rowan was trying his best to protect what remained of his heart. The garden scene replayed in his mind constantly. The promise, the kiss, the way Adrian had looked at Vanessa. It hurt. So he did the only thing he could. He stopped hoping, stopped waiting, stopped expecting anything. Because every expectation eventually became disappointment. One afternoon, Rowan was organizing documents in the study. His pregnancy was becoming more noticeable now. The baby had started moving occasionally. Those little kicks were becoming his favorite part of every day. Suddenly, a small flutter. Rowan smiled. His hand immediately rested against his stomach. There you are. Another tiny kick followed. The smile on Rowan's face became genuine. A rare sight these days. Unfortunately, someone witnessed it. Adrian. He had entered the room unnoticed. For a moment, he simply stood there, watching. The sadness Rowan usually carried had disappeared. Instead, he looked peaceful, happy, soft. Adrian had never seen that expression directed at him. The realization was strangely unpleasant. Rowan looked up. The moment he noticed Adrian, the smile disappeared. Immediately, as if it had never existed. Alpha. He lowered his head politely. Back to formal. Back to distant. Back to cold. Adrian frowned. How are you feeling? The question surprised both of them. Rowan blinked. I'm fine. A simple answer. Nothing more. No smile. No conversation. No attempt to continue talking. Just fine. Then Rowan returned to organizing documents. Clearly dismissing him. Adrian stood there longer than necessary. Waiting. For what? He wasn't sure. Maybe a question. Maybe a smile. Maybe the Rowan who used to look happy whenever he entered a room. Instead, nothing happened. That night Adrian couldn't stop thinking about it. The distance. The silence. The avoidance. It shouldn't matter. Yet somehow it did. A few days later, the entire family gathered for dinner. The elders were discussing the future heir. Vanessa sat beside Adrian as usual. Everything appeared normal. Then one elder smiled. Rowan, how is the baby? Immediately, Rowan's face softened. A small smile appeared. The doctor says everything is healthy. And the baby? Another elder laughed. Still kicking. The entire table watched as Rowan unconsciously touched his stomach. A warmth filled his eyes. Very active. Everyone chuckled. Everyone except Adrian. Because for the entire conversation, Rowan never once looked at him. Not once. The realization settled heavily in his chest. Before, Rowan's eyes always searched for him. Always followed him. Always noticed him. Now, it was as though Adrian no longer existed. And for reasons he couldn't understand. That hurt. A lot more than it should have. Later that night, Rowan sat alone in his room. One hand rested on his stomach. The baby kicked again. A small smile appeared. You only have me now. His voice was barely above a whisper. But that's okay. A tear slipped down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away. Because for the first time, Rowan was preparing himself for life after Adrian. While downstairs, Adrian stood by his office window, staring into the darkness, unable to shake the feeling that something important was slipping away from him, and he had no idea how to stop it. Later that evening, unable to sleep, Rowan sat by the window. A half-finished painting rested on the easel in front of him. Recently, painting had become the only thing that calmed him, the only thing that helped him forget. Forget Adrian. Forget Vanessa. Forget the future that would never belong to him. His brush moved slowly across the canvas. Then suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his stomach. Rowan gasped. The brush slipped from his fingers. His hand immediately moved to his swollen belly. No. Another pain followed. Stronger this time. His entire body trembled. One of the servants noticed his condition and immediately rushed forward. Mr. Bell. Rowan's face had turned pale. Call the doctor. The servant quickly nodded. But after contacting the packed doctor, his expression changed. Sir, the doctor says you need to go to the hospital immediately. Rowan's heart dropped. The servant hesitated. But no one can leave the pack house at night without Alpha Adrian's permission. Immediately, several calls were placed. One after another. Adrian's phone rang. Again, and again, and again. But there was no answer. Because at that very moment, Adrian was with Vanessa. Vanessa glanced at the screen. A small smile appeared. Someone keeps calling. Adrian barely looked at it. It's probably work. The phone continued vibrating. Again, and again, and again. Vanessa's eyes narrowed when she saw the caller information. Pack house. Without Adrian noticing, she quietly pressed the power button. The phone switched off. The calls stopped. And Adrian never knew they came. Back at the mansion, Rowan curled into himself on the floor. The pain refused to stop. Hours passed. The servants remained helpless, unable to take him outside without permission, unable to contact Adrian, unable to do anything except watch Rowan suffer. By midnight, he was crying silently. By 3 in the morning, he could barely speak. By sunrise, he had collapsed. The moment pack restrictions were lifted, the servants rushed him to the hospital. Doctors immediately surrounded him. Machines beeped. Nurses moved quickly. The atmosphere was tense, dangerously tense. Hours later, Adrian finally returned to the mansion. The moment he entered, his mother slapped him. The sound echoed through the hallway. Adrian froze. "Mother, do you have any idea what happened?" His mother's eyes were filled with anger. Rowan was suffering the entire night. What? He could have lost the baby. The words hit Adrian like a truck. The baby. His baby. The servants quickly explained everything. The unanswered calls. The permission they couldn't obtain. The night Rowan spent in agony. Adrian immediately checked his phone. His expression darkened. It was switched off. Dozens of missed calls appeared the moment it restarted. His stomach dropped. Meanwhile, inside the hospital room, Rowan had finally regained consciousness. The door wasn't fully closed. Voices drifted in from outside. His mother's voice. The doctor's voice. Adrian's voice. "You should be ashamed of yourself." His mother shouted. "That Omega almost lost your child. Do you even care about him?" Silence. Then Adrian spoke. Frustrated. Cornered. Angry at everyone blaming him. "What do you want me to say?" The hallway fell silent. Adrian ran a hand through his hair. "He's a temporary mate." His mother stared at him in disbelief. Adrian continued, every word becoming worse. "Haven't all of you understood that yet? The contract ends after the heir is born. I'll take responsibility for my child. I'll provide everything. But why is everyone acting like Rowan is my responsibility forever?" The doctor's expression darkened. "Adrian." "No." Adrian snapped. "Why does everyone keep forcing this on me? I'll take care of my baby. After that, Rowan can leave if he wants." The world went silent. Inside the hospital room, Rowan had heard every single word. Every single word. Slowly, his hand moved over his stomach. His eyes burned with unshed tears. Not because he was surprised. Deep down, he had always known. But hearing it out loud still shattered something inside him. The father of his child, his mate, the man he loved, had just told everyone exactly what Rowan meant to him. Nothing. A temporary obligation. Someone who could leave once the baby arrived. A tear slipped down Rowan's cheek. This time, he didn't wipe it away, because something inside him had finally died. And from that day forward, Rowan stopped waiting for Adrian, stopped looking for him, stopped hoping, stopped loving him openly. For the remaining months of his pregnancy, he became nothing more than a polite stranger living in the same house. And Adrian had no idea that the words spoken in anger that day had destroyed any chance Rowan had left to believe in him. Vanessa stood alone in her bedroom. A small wooden box rested in her hands. Slowly, she opened it. Inside was an old photograph. A young alpha smiled at the camera, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. Anyone looking at the picture would think they were happy. Vanessa stared at it coldly, without emotion, without regret. "You should have stayed out of my way." Years ago, he had been her fated mate, the one destiny had chosen for her. But destiny had made a mistake. He had no wealth, no powerful family, no influence, no future worth sharing. And Vanessa had wanted more, much more. She wanted power, status, the Hale name. She wanted to stand beside the future Alpha King, not some insignificant mate chosen by fate. So she had made a choice, a terrible choice, one that nobody knew about, one that had buried her secret along with the man himself. Everyone believed his death had been an accident. Only Vanessa knew the truth, and she intended to keep it that way. Her fingers tightened around the photograph. Then her phone rang. The screen displayed Adrian's name. A smile immediately appeared. The coldness vanished. The mask returned. Because Adrian Hale was the future she had chosen, and she would destroy anyone who threatened that future, including Rowan Bell. Months passed. After the hospital incident, Rowan slowly changed. He stopped expecting anything from Adrian, stopped waiting for him, stopped reacting when he chose Vanessa. He simply lived quietly, carrying the pregnancy alone in silence. Another month passed. One night, everything changed. Rowan's body gave out suddenly. The pain came too fast to ignore. Servants rushed in and immediately called for emergency help. Within minutes, Rowan was taken to the hospital. The delivery was long and exhausting. The doctors worked urgently. Heart rate dropping. Blood loss increasing. Prepare support, quick. But despite the danger, Rowan survived the delivery. And one by one, 4 babies were born. 2 alpha boys. 2 omega girls. All healthy. All breathing. All alive. The entire hospital finally relaxed. The doctor confirmed. The babies are safe. But the mother has lost a significant amount of blood. He needs rest and recovery. The news spread quickly. The Hale heirs were born. 4 healthy children. The pack reacted immediately. Elders, leaders, and members all expressed relief. A quiet celebration began. Not for romance. Not for Rowan. But for the future of the pack. The heirs had arrived. The next morning, Adrian arrived at the hospital. When he entered the room, he stopped. Rowan was lying on the bed. Pale. Weak. Completely drained. He looked like he had no strength left in his body. Beside him, 4 small babies slept peacefully. Adrian stood for a moment, silent. Something in his chest felt heavy, but he didn't understand it. He stayed only briefly. Then he left. That night, the hospital was quiet. Rowan lay awake. The babies were beside him, all 4 sleeping peacefully. The room was dim, silent. Rowan stared at them for a long time. His expression wasn't sadness. It wasn't anger. It was something calmer. A decision already made. Slowly, his hand moved to the bond mark on his neck. For a moment, he paused. Then he whispered, "It's enough." And he broke the bond. At that exact moment, far away in the mansion, Adrian suddenly froze. A strange pain shot through his chest. Sharp. Unexpected. He placed a hand over it. "What is this?" For a second, his breathing stopped. But then, Vanessa called him. "Adrian, come here." And just like that, he ignored it. The feeling faded. That same night, Rowan carefully sat up. His body trembled slightly, but he didn't stop. He looked at the 4 babies one last time. His fingers brushed each tiny hand. Soft. Warm. Alive. "I'm sorry." His voice was low. "I can't stay. They will be safe here. They will grow as Hale heirs. They will have everything I never could give them." His eyes stayed on them for a long time. Then slowly, he stepped back. Before dawn, Rowan left the hospital. Alone. He did not take the babies. He did not ask for anything. He left no anger behind. Only a small folded note. "Take care of them. They deserve everything this world can give. Goodbye." Morning came. Adrian returned again. This time, something felt wrong immediately. Too quiet. Too still. When he entered the room, he stopped. The bed was empty. Rowan was gone. His eyes moved quickly. The babies were still there. Safe. Sleeping. But Rowan was not. Rowan? No answer. Only silence. Then he saw it. The note. His hand slowed as he picked it up. He read it once. Then again. And again. Behind him, nurses whispered. He already left. He fulfilled his duty. The heirs are safe. Pack leaders arrived shortly after. One of them spoke calmly. There is no need to search. He was paid and given protection for the pregnancy. He has completed his role. Another nodded. The heirs will be raised as Hale successors. That is all that matters now. Silence filled the room. Adrian stood still. The note in his hand felt heavier than it should. For the first time, he didn't feel anger. He didn't feel relief. He only felt something unfamiliar. A hollow emptiness. As if something inside him had quietly broken. Without making a sound. After Rowan left the hospital, the pack slowly returned to routine. The 4 babies were safe in the nursery. The Hale heirs had arrived. But something was no longer the same. At first, people spoke quietly. Then the conversations became unavoidable. Because Rowan had not left like a normal Omega. He had left everything behind. Without demanding anything. Without creating conflict. Without causing pain. He endured everything, one elder said. Pregnancy, blood loss, isolation, and still no complaint. Another added. And he broke the bond alone. With no retaliation. With no harm to his alpha. Silence followed. That detail stayed heavier than anything else. Adrian's mother stood quietly in the hall. She had listened to everything. For a long time, she said nothing. Then she spoke softly. He was accepted as temporary. But he acted like a true Luna. No one responded immediately. Her voice tightened slightly. He never once caused pain to Adrian. He left in silence so the bond would not hurt him. She looked down. That kind of person is rare. Adrian heard these conversations slowly over the next days. Not directly. Pieces. Fragments. Whispers. But they stayed in his mind longer than expected. At night, he would sometimes pause without reason. A strange discomfort in his chest. Not strong. Not clear. Just unfamiliar. He did not understand it yet. So he ignored it. Vanessa noticed the change. Not clearly, but enough. Adrian was quieter. Less responsive. More distracted. Especially when Rowan's name came up. And that made her uneasy. Very uneasy. Because Rowan was no longer present. But he was still being spoken about. Still being remembered. Still being praised. One evening, Vanessa overheard servants again. He was the best Luna candidate. If only Alpha had accepted him. That was enough. Her expression changed. Cold. Controlled. But sharp underneath. That night, she made a decision. Quietly. Without telling Adrian. She contacted people outside the pack. Not pack guards. Not official security. Private hunters. The instruction was simple. Find him. No further explanation. But greed and insecurity do not stay controlled for long. Words spread in the wrong direction. And the intention changed. From search to elimination. A few days later, Rowan was traveling alone outside Hale territory. Still weak from childbirth. Still recovering. He had not gone far. He was not trying to run, only to survive quietly. But he was already being followed. Unknown men surrounded him suddenly. Not pack soldiers. Not official guards. They were not here for rescue. Rowan stepped back slowly. His body was still weak. Too weak to fight. Who sent you? No answer. Only movement. Before anything could happen, a strong alpha pressure filled the area. Instantly. Heavy enough to stop everyone in place. A man stepped forward from the shadows. Not from Hale Pack. Not recognized. But clearly powerful. Calm. Controlled. Dangerous in a quiet way. He looked at the attackers once. Only once. And they stopped moving. Leave, he said simply. No raised voice. No warning. Just command. Within moments, the attackers retreated. Without a fight. Without explanation. Silence returned. The alpha turned toward Rowan. He studied him for a moment. Then spoke. You shouldn't be alone here. Rowan didn't respond. He could barely stand. The alpha sighed slightly. Then crouched down. I'll take you somewhere safe. A pause. Not forceful. Not demanding. Just certain. Rowan didn't refuse. He couldn't. His strength gave out slowly. The alpha supported him carefully. Not like possession. Not like ownership. But like someone who understood survival. Before leaving, he glanced once in the direction of Hale territory. No expression. No hatred. No interest. Just distance. Then he turned away. And Rowan disappeared from that place. Without returning. But this time, he was not alone in silence. Someone had seen him.